Hey guys, Akio Murasaki here. Today I have a bit of an unusual topic. It so happens that one of the fellow VTubers, Powdur here, is in a bit of a legal pickle recently because of one of her models. I'd like to talk a little bit about this today, have a look at some of the comments people left on Twitter and whether these comments indicate that she is or not in legal trouble. Or maybe she's not. And then, of course, at the very end, we're going to go through the license in question here, specifically for her model, and see whether it's legally binding or whether she is in any kind of legal trouble. Now, I just want to preface this by saying I am not a licensed lawyer. However, I do have training in copyright law, and I have some familiarity with licensing contracts, as I've worked quite a bit with them in the past. And therefore, I decided to share my 2 and 3 cents on this topic. But let's first start by listening to a clip here from Powdur because I think it clarifies a bit of the situation. We're going to listen to it in its entirety. I'm going to point out some things that are very relevant here, some maybe not, and I'll just listen to it.
Hey guys! Oh, one sec. Hey guys, I got this new model. Do you like it? This is the LizMeta customizable model. I originally got it to cosplay Amelia, but I can only channel my inner Brit for so long.
Okay, so just a little bit of more context, which might actually not be mentioned here. Powdur, at least to my knowledge, is not a political streamer. She's not a political VTuber. However, she does occasionally make rather, edgy kind of jokes related to politics. And she recently had an entire stream where she was cosplaying as Amelia. If you're not familiar, Amelia from a heavily politicized game made by an organization partially related to the British government to fight extremism. And so she was cosplaying as a character in the game, Amelia, and she was specifically using the model whose license we are now discussing.
Through the power of fusion, my new self was born, and you all really liked it. Let's get something out of the way first. There's this weird rumor going around that I can't use my old Powdur model, but they're just wrong. I have the files, I have the rights, I paid for it, it's mine. I've been posting on Twitter as my new self quite a bit, and one post in particular took off. Oh no, you're a racist. And? Question mark? If that's their way of attacking someone for standing up for their country and their people, then so be it. That doesn't offend me at all. It seems I've caused some controversy. Enough to catch the eyes of the model artist. They commented saying, "Hello, we request that you no longer use this model to make extreme remarks. This is a customizable VTuber model, and your controversial statements may make other LizMeta users feel uncomfortable and offended. We do not insist that you delete your previous videos. It would be greatly appreciated if you choose to do so, but we ask that you refrain from making extreme videos using our model going forward. Otherwise, we will revoke your model usage rights."
Okay, so now a couple of things regarding this. I'm going to go through some of these things a little later, but a couple of things from this. This, theoretically, the text of this, comment here posted on X/Twitter could be considered a cease and desist. I think someone mentioned this on Twitter that this could be interpreted that way. I really do not believe so, because in order to send someone a cease and desist, it has to be done officially. You can't just go and post it on social media. This is nothing more than a friendly request. We request that you no longer. Could it be interpreted, but I really do not think that this kind of request can be considered legally binding in any way. And to make extreme remarks, so she mentions that it was specifically about that one clip on X, but as far as I know, Powdur has been under fire for quite a while now. There's been some stuff related to her previous Warhammer 40k commissar outfit that also got people really riled up and fired up. And also, regarding this specifically, making extreme remarks, okay, fair enough, you can kind of sort of argue about this. And this is a customizable VTuber model, which I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to say here. Your controversial statements may make other LizMeta users feel uncomfortable and offended. No, that in no way is any of this illegal in any way. Make uncomfortable and offended. Yeah, I was wondering who these people are. Actually, we found an entire two. It's a big group of very upset people on Twitter, obviously. And here's the interesting part. We do not insist that you delete your previous videos. It would be greatly appreciated if you choose to do so, okay? But we ask that you refrain from making extreme videos using our model going forward. We're gonna get to that. There's a license agreement at the very end. We're gonna discuss it in the context of some of this. Otherwise, we will revoke your model usage rights. Can they revoke the rights? We're gonna discuss this as well.
What? I'm not going to stop saying things like this because someone else thinks it's extreme. Where did you even get the idea that it was extreme? My take was very sensible. Also, revoke my model usage rights. Can they do that? When I was looking for a model to create Amelia, I very specifically read the TOS before purchasing. Kokoda...
Okay. And here we're getting to the more interesting part. She does explicitly mention that she is familiar with the TOS. Powdur did look at the TOS, and now we're gonna go into the details of how the TOS was phrased at the time of purchase.
Specifically states, we merely provide the model and are not responsible for the statements made by any individual users. So why are they trying to police the words I say? And what grounds do they have to revoke my model usage rights? Maybe I missed something. Let's take a look at this TOS again. Wait a second. Well, that seems oddly...
The use of this model to generate unfriendly or hateful speech is strictly prohibited. Okay, fair enough. Let's see.
That wasn't there before. I bought this model on January 17th and debuted as Amelia on the 19th. On the 20th, a Twitter user by the name of Riz Sekuru suggested the model artist update their TOS.
I've seen several pre-made models, including a politics ban, harmful content ban in their TOS. You may want to add it moving forward so you don't have people smearing your reputation and making the model look bad. Okay, sucks that it happened. It's not surprising who did it though.
Several pre-made models, including a politics ban / harmful content ban in their TOS. You may want to add it moving forward so you don't have people smearing your reputation and making the model look bad. Sucks that it happened. It's not surprising who did it though. And I just have no idea who they could be referencing in this tweet.
Right.
But anyway, their TOS did get updated. I don't even know how you'd enforce rules like that. And now the artist is trying to retroactively apply that TOS to me. But I already bought the model. This isn't my first time dealing with Twitter controversy, so after the artist publicly threatened me, I decided to stay quiet and see how it played out. I was prepared for escalation if they went that route, because I will not bend to social pressure. My patience paid off. Since I chose not to respond or mention anything about the TOS change, I watched as a group of super sleuthers found it on their own and started spreading the word. I really appreciate that, thank you. The model was only ever a placeholder until I got my 3.0, but until then, I will keep using it. My community loves it and I love it too. I want to thank those of you for having my back. Thank you for defending me. I'm a hardened veteran at this point when it comes to controversy, but that doesn't mean I can always fight alone. So in summary, I paid for the model, it's mine.
Okay, let's stop right here. Let's have a discussion about what just happened, what she said, what she talked about. It's some of the, comments on Twitter as well, because I think these are very, very important. So the first comment here, the model is at VGen Chaliz product. We're going to go there in a moment. All of the license terms are listed. For $140, you probably can't expect unrestricted ownership rights to a model of this quality. Okay, interesting, important point. What else do we have? Right. I forgot to mention, of course, here are the people who are absolutely upset about the model being misused. Thank you for finally speaking up. Of course, they only ever speak up when someone else first speaks up. I was literally just talking about how I no longer wanted to get the LizMeta model due to not wanting to be associated with a Nazi freak. Of course, a Nazi freak, of course. Of course, it has to be some form of cancel culture. Of course, it has to be some kind of bandwagoning and banding together and trying to smear someone because they don't like that person. And here the person says, I was planning on possibly getting the LizMeta model. Never mind, it hit me the reason Powdur looks so familiar is that she's using the LizMeta model now. Now I had a look at Powdur's model. I had a look at some of the other LizMeta models, and at least from my personal kind of like a 3D artist perspective, there are some similarities across the models, but it's also very much possible to use this, customizable LizMeta model to create a VTuber model, to create your own product, your own creation that does not look at all similar to Powdur's model. So it's absolutely possible. Is it hard to do? Not really. When I had a look at many of the LizMeta based model, I noticed that the minority of them were really similar to Powdur. There were some little things around the eye shading, for instance, around the cheek shading that kind of, and eye shape in general, that a little bit gave it away that this is this specific VTuber model. But even when we're going to see the original model, there are barely any similarities in general, and kind of like design similarities with Powdur's model. So if push came to shove, and I mean, I'm extrapolating right now, but if things went to court, then obviously there would be the kind of the damages. One could bring up that the ability of Kokoda here and the LizMeta team, or whatever they're called, Chaliz team, their ability to sell the model has been impacted by Powdur's rhetorics, for instance, that she's causing damages to them, for instance. That is definitely an angle, but I don't think it holds very much, considering that you can create any model you want, and again, they would need to invite an expert or something, but at least from my perspective, it's not very, very similar to Powdur's model, all of the models that I've seen so far. Okay, what else do we have? We have the changes of the TOS, something more, but we're gonna go for the TOS a little later, so that's not very important right now. Here we have Nixie, some again a VTuber, also using the Chaliz Kokoda model. And Nixie here, for instance, she has like an entire thread about this, but she says, incorrect, Chaliz changed her TOS before Powdur made this post, but unfortunately after she had made the purchase. And this is very important also. We're gonna go about like notifying the license holders, notifying the license users what applies where. Go check her latest video, she explains herself. You're gonna make a claim, maybe check your facts. I mean, yeah, she did explain, we've seen the video. And then there is a comment about like the usage of the model. You're still free to speak, just not with her model. In simple words, no one is stopping her from speaking, except that future buyers of LizMeta model just don't have the license rights to use the model for that. We're gonna talk about this as well. When you buy a VTuber model, you're buying a license to use it. This is actually very important. I can already mention it here straight away since we are bringing this part up. But yes, that is correct. In this case, the model itself would be classified as a software product, especially considering that kind of a software product in the sense that it's a customizable model. So you're not buying the end product itself, you're not buying the model, you're kind of buying a piece of software that allows you to generate the model itself. That's a little relevant here, and I feel like a lot of this would fall under the standard, legalities of software products, as like the Microsoft Office here, for instance. Very similar, like a similar scenario might actually apply here, at least to my understanding. So yes, the license absolutely does apply. That means the artist keeps copyright unless otherwise stated. I would not necessarily say so. The copyright aspect here is a little more complicated. This would need to be, there would need to be some kind of a default, or this would need to be stated very, very clearly in the terms of service in the license agreement itself. So it's not like an obvious default here. You get permission to use the work under specific terms. That part is true. A license may restrict redistribution, resale. We're gonna get there as well. If someone wants total freedom, they need to create their own model or negotiate a license explicitly allows to use it. And then we have, I think, apparently Kokoda has also related. Also, a very important thing, Kokoda is Japanese and Powdur, I think, is American. So we're also talking about kind of like the international aspect here across countries. The legalities might apply here differently as well. But they're basically, Kokoda here is Chaliz Kokoda. They're saying, we have already communicated resolution with the individual case privately. Did they though? Because from Powdur's recollection, it doesn't seem that way. It just seems like they've posted this on social media. So we won't get into the details. As for the updated terms, any existing user who purchased before the terms update and does not wish to accept the new terms may request a refund. So here is the thing. You can state it here publicly, but unless you are directly informing Powdur of the... I'm just going to straight away say this because this is already very important. Unless Kokoda here is informing Powdur directly via a clear communication, and Powdur is able to confirm that they received this communication, this kind of public statement is in no way binding. It has absolutely no reflection on anything. It doesn't mean anything. Literally, it's just them basically, shouting into the void, kind of. At least from my perspective here. Upon receiving a refund, the license is fully terminated. And again, none of these things are very much binding. Like these things, I'm just gonna say it straight away here at this point. If you are changing the license agreement, you need to inform the users of the changes to the license agreement. And this is very often done via email, via like a public statement, but that would also kind of need to either tag or relate, or there would need to be like a clear means of communication between someone who's the licensee and the licensor of a specific piece of software. Otherwise, none of this, at least from my perspective, none of this makes any difference whatsoever. And now we're going to look at the terms of service. This is very important here because the terms of service, let me just move myself here a little bit. The terms of service are not super clear. Here is the VGen booth for VTuber models and different other models. And here we specifically have the Chaliz Kokoda model, the LizMeta model by Chaliz Kokoda. That is a customizable VTuber model. As you can see here, it costs money, obviously. There are some breakdowns here. It's for personal use, for monetized content. It's not for commercial merchandising. That's also very important here. And let me just move myself a little bit so that you guys see exactly the license agreement. Here we're going to talk about the license agreement. This is the most important thing, and I will go through this kind of point by point so that we can analyze everything. LizMeta is a highly customizable live 2D model thoughtfully designed for virtual streamers and content creators, offering 1,000 customization options. Is this relevant in any way? This might, this might play into what I mentioned earlier about it being a piece of software rather than the final product. So this is kind of relevant, especially the later part here. You can freely mix and match hairstyles, outfits, accessories, and even fine-tune facial features, letting your creativity run wild to craft a one-of-a-kind VTuber persona. So all of this together can be considered the LizMeta model being a software product. Now again, I am emphasizing can be considered because these things need to be interpreted legally afterwards. Unless it's clearly stated using common terms appearing in license agreements, these things need to be interpreted as, basically, by lawyers, of course. Yeah, we truly hope this model brings you endless creative fun and inspiration, blah, blah, blah. And here we have, to ensure the best user experience, you are the user of the model, the user of the license, please carefully review the following terms. This is a beginning of the license terms. So this basically turns this entire thing into a license agreement now. Okay, let's go for the terms. They're unfortunately not pointed, not pointed, so it's, kind of doesn't look very good here. The use of this model to generate unfriendly or hateful speech is strictly prohibited. Now, we're gonna say two things here. Hateful speech, this could theoretically be, interpreted as hate speech. There are laws for hate speech, so you can theoretically, kind of wrap it up in this. To generate unfriendly, this means absolutely nothing. Like, what does unfriendly mean? Unfriendly is not a legal term. It's not in no way legally binding, so whatever. Strictly prohibited. If you maintain multiple accounts on the same platform that appear unrelated, such as those with entirely distinct usernames, avatars, for example, to conceal your identity, you must purchase a separate copy for each account, even if all accounts are operated by the same individual. I am not exactly sure how would you want to enforce this, because this is kind of like a token of good faith point. And also, just to be fairly clear, these things should be separated into individual points. Otherwise, it's just very difficult to identify how these points are separate from each other. This is also very important, by the way. So if you maintain multiple accounts, by the way, this should be part of the VGen platform. This is not something that should be related to the model license agreement itself, because you're kind of talking about multiple accounts. Multiple accounts where? Are we talking about multiple accounts on VGen? Are we talking about multiple accounts within the software application itself? Unclear. This is just very confusing what they mean here, not very legally binding. Anyway, we merely provide a model and are not responsible for the statements made by any individual users. This is a very important clause, talking about limited responsibility here. There are various agreements, company agreements and product agreements that kind of, depending on what kind of company you are, you might be a company with limited responsibility as well, which is then kind of baked into the legal entity. But here specifically, this is a clause that very often appears in commercial software and any form of software. This is a very important clause because it basically means that the company here, Chaliz Kokoda, or whoever the legal entity here really is, cannot be held accountable for anything that the model was used for. So for instance, if someone decided to commit a crime somehow using the model, I'm not exactly sure how, but let's assume that to be the case, then obviously Chaliz Kokoda is not responsible for any consequences of that crime in any illegal way. Important clause, not very much so for this context, but also this plays a little bit into the complaints that other people had for feeling uncomfortable. This is in no way legally binding, by the way. The Chaliz team stands for peace. I don't know what is this even doing here. This is not a why is this in a license agreement? This means absolutely nothing. And okay, now here we're getting into something that's very important. And I don't know if this was the case before, but it seems to be the case because it's kind of the personal aspect here is pointed out, right? Each model is licensed for personal use by one individual only. Now this, together with the license agreement, turns this into a software plus license agreement kind of situation. We strictly prohibit any form of reselling, sharing, distribution, or commercial sub-licensing. Fair enough. Violations may result in legal consequences. Violations of what? Violations of that specific term, or violations of the entire license agreement? Which is it? And see, this is exactly why I pointed out that the license agreement needs to be written in bullet points, so it's very clear how the individual points of the agreement are identified. Because if you write your license agreement like this, many of these points are down to interpretation. Because we don't know if these are separate points or this is all like a single point, which makes this entire, I'm going to be honest here, not only makes it very poorly written and hard to read, but it also doesn't really make it very enforceable legally, okay? We're committed to protecting creators' rights, and we appreciate your understanding and cooperation. Okay, for optimal results, please confirm that you've mastered the basic functions such as importing models and adjusting parameters. This could be interpreted as you need to confirm, you need to like physically confirm via a button click or something. Okay, then what else do we have? If you're a first-time user, we recommend familiarizing yourself with the official tutorials before making a purchase. Okay, the final product. Okay, this is very interesting. The final product may have subtle differences from the initial plans, with some features or details adjusted for technical optimization. I am not quite sure how can one interpret this. As in, are you saying that the product you're selling is not the product that you're advertising? Like, what does it even mean? Okay, to avoid any misunderstandings, we strongly recommend visiting next profile of Chaliz Kokoda and checking the showcase videos as your authoritative reference. Of course, some content is still in the works and we'll provide updates from time to time. Okay. To ensure your satisfaction, many elements are planned for future updates may not appear in the launch videos. Please verify that the model includes all the features you need before placing an order to guarantee it meets your expectations. These things, by the way, need to be explained up front. These need to be clearly labeled so it's clear to the customer what they're actually buying. Okay, here's some more about the product itself. This product is a digital virtual item, and once delivered, the transaction is considered complete with no support for refunds or returns. This product is a digital virtual item, and once delivered, the transaction is considered complete with no support for... See, the problem with this here, the way this is phrased, is that this could be considered as the end of the license agreement. Meaning, okay, I maybe explain this a little bit because these points are horrendously important. Normally, when you have a software license agreement, when you buy the product, the software, you are continuously bound by the license of its usage. And this is especially true for software that has some kind of like a server component or, you know, communicates with like with the company continuously, for instance, to check the license key and stuff like this. But this to me sounds like it kind of terminates the license agreement. Like it's that the license is valid at the moment of purchase. That's literally how it could be interpreted. Please consider carefully before placing an order. Thank you for choosing LizMeta. If you have any questions, feedback, feel free to contact us anyway. We're excited to explore the boundless possibilities of virtual creation together with you. Okay, so now the kind of the summary, the conclusion here. Is Powdur in trouble or not? I would say maybe to some extent she might be in trouble in the sense that theoretically, very slim chance, theoretically at the moment she was purchasing the model, she entered a legal agreement, she entered the licensing agreement with Chaliz Kokoda here for the model, and so it basically would mean that the license agreement applies as long as the model itself, as long as the piece of software is being used. However, there are two very important points. One I alluded to before, which is that Chaliz Kokoda, of course, has a responsibility to inform the people who bought the product of the license changes. This is absolutely mandatory. It needs to be done clearly and in a way that there's no doubt that Powdur would not be able to read the updates and would need to confirm also that she accepts the new terms of service. There are different ways software does this. This is way easier with online services where you, for instance, log in and you instantly get like a pop-up like, we've updated the terms of service, please confirm. Now, the moment you confirm, you agree to the new terms of service. Now here, as far as I understand, there was no clear communication that these terms of service were updated and the new version of the terms of service, the license agreement applies to the model, and therefore, obviously, Powdur was not informed about the changes, and therefore, none of this is in any way binding. And now the second component is the text of the license agreement, which personally to me is a complete hot mess. It's very poorly formatted. It's unclear how the points in the agreement are distributed. It's very, very messy. There's a lot to be left to interpretation because of how incredibly vague the language is. And for them to be able to enforce this under, I'm assuming, well, it's very hard to say now, under US law or under international law or under Japanese law here. I'm not entirely sure which would apply, whether all of them would apply, how this would be resolved. But in the end, enforceability of this license agreement is just, I'm afraid to say, very, very low. Now, it's of course possible that Powdur and Chaliz Kokoda are going to come to some sort of agreement on this. And of course, then Powdur can agree. She doesn't have to agree. She might agree. She might, be here more welcoming and agree to the changes, agree to some kind of alternative terms, which then would obviously apply. But until that happens, I don't think she's really in much of a trouble. I don't think she's going to be really much affected here. But that's basically it for my breakdown. It ended up being very long, but I hope you guys at least learned something here. And also, please, of course, leave a comment. I want to hear from you, especially some of you that have the legal experience and probably way more experience than me as well. Please weigh in and let me know what is your opinion on the topic. But that's going to be it for now, and I see you guys in the next one. Mata ne!